The operational landscape of modern aerial warfare is currently defined by two premier fifth-generation platforms, the F-35 Lightning II and the G-20 Mighty Dragon. While the American platforms operates as a global coalition asset across multiple allied air force, the Chinese interceptor focused exclusively on projecting regional power over the Western Pacific. The F-35 relies on a massive production scale with over 1,300 units built for widespread interoperability, whereas the G-20 fleet remains highly concentrated with roughly 300 aircraft dedicated entirely to homeland defense. To truly understand which factors hold the definitive advantage in a potential modern engagement, you must watch until the end as we analyze their technical capabilities. Let's break it down. Number 10. Combat History and Experience. The evaluation of modern fighter platforms often begins with their actual deployment in hostile environment. The F-35 has accumulated measurable combat experience since 2018, executing strike missions and patrol across Syria, Iraq, and Europe. These operational exposures allows coalition forces to continuously refine their electronic warfare protocols and tactical deployment strategies based on live telemetry. Conversely, the G-20 has not engaged in actual combat operations, functioning primarily in regional patrols and control training exercise. Exact performance metrics regarding how the Chinese airframe handles hostile electronic countermeasures or complex engagement scenarios remain theoretical, as detailed data is not publicly available. Operational history provides a distinct advantage in software iterations. The American platform benefits from feedback loops generated by pilots facing active threats, leading to improved situational awareness algorithms. Without live combat validation, the Chinese platform must rely entirely on simulated engagements and peacetime wargaming to validate its system. In prolonged conflicts, real-world testing reduces the likelihood of critical system failures when operating within heavily contested airspace. This fundamental difference in field-tested maturity shapes their respective tactical reliability curves over time. At number 9, fleet logistics and production pace. A critical determinant of sustained air dominance is the industrial capacity to generate and maintain fleet volume. As of early 2026, the F-35 program has manufactured over 1,300 airframes, fielding them across the USAF, USN, USMC, and a vast network of allied nations. This multinational adoption establishes a decentralized, global logistics chain capable of supplying spare parts and technical support across multiple theaters of operations. The G-20 fleet is estimated at approximately 300 aircraft by late 2025, operating exclusively within the Chinese force structure without any foreign operators. The American strategy relies on overwhelming numbers and shared international resources to absorb operational attritions. The Chinese strategy prioritizes building a highly concentrated, localized fleet designed specifically for regional deterrence rather than global power protections. Consequently, the F-35 can leverage forward-deployed supply hubs across Europe and the Pacific to maintain high sortie generation rates. The G-20 depends entirely on domestic industrial output and internal supply lines, confining its maximum operational effectiveness to areas directly supported by mainland infrastructure. This relies on localized production bottlenecks could severely impact the capacity to replace airframe loss in combat. At number 8, fleet sustainment and maintenance. Sustaining high operational readiness during a conflict requires advanced diagnostics network and predictable maintenance cycles. The F-35 utilizes comprehensive digital sustainment tools like the Autonomic Logistic Information System to monitor component health and automate supply requisition. This continuous tracking allows maintenance crews to pre-position replacement parts before critical hardware failure occur, significantly improving turnaround times as the platform matures. In contrast, details regarding the maintenance turnaround and sustained sortie generation capabilities of the G20 remains completely undisclosed, and precise data is not publicly available. The ability to launch consecutive missions rapidly dictates airs purity and localized engagements. The American platform's publicly documented reliability goals demonstrate a clear focus on maintaining a high percentage of combat-ready aircraft at any given time. Without transparent logistic performance, the operational availability of the Chinese interceptor during high-intensity, prolonged warfare is difficult to calculate. If the G20 requires extended ground time for stealth coating repairs or engine servicing, its localized numerical disadvantage could be severely compounded when facing a constant rotation of network coalition fighters. Consequently, the proven logistics network heavily favors sustained coalition operations over isolated regional defensive postures. Number 7. High-speed kinematics. When evaluating raw kinetic performance, twin-engine thrust provides specific tactical options in beyond visual range interceptions. The G20 is capable of reaching a top speed of roughly Mach 2.0, powered by its twin WS-10C engines, granting it to substantial kinetic advantage for rapid sprint maneuvers. This high-speed profile aligns with its interceptor role, allowing it to close distance quickly against high-value support assets. In comparison, the F-35 utilizes a single Pratt & Whitney F135 engine, restricting its absolute maximum speed to approximately Mach 1.6 at high altitudes. While the Chinese platforms possesses the true capacity for faster acceleration and potential supercruise, the American platforms trade the sheer velocity for optimized stealth and fuel efficiency during standard cruise profiles. In actual engagement, 5th-generation aircraft rarely rely on maximum supersonic speeds, rapidly degrades both fuel reserves and thermal stealth signature. However, the superior top speed of the G20 allows its pilots to impart greater kinematic energy to their long-range munition prior to launch, effectively extending the lethal engagement envelope of its missile compared to those fired from a slower platforms, dictating the initial terms of engagement. Number 6. Close-range maneuverability. In that event, that stealth perimeters are breached, structural agility and aerodynamic control dictate survivability in the within visual range arena. Both platforms are structurally rated to endure 9G maneuvers, far exceeding the practical limits of legacy 4th-generation fighters. The F-35 features a moderate wing loading of approximately 526 kg per square meter and relies on high engine thrust combined with sophisticated flight control software to achieve exceptional instantaneous turn rates. The G20 utilizes a lower wing loading of roughly 340 kg per square meter alongside its forward canard and tail planes to offset its substantially larger physical mass. The American fighter excels in aggressive, high angle of attack dogfighting scenarios where retaining energy through tight horizontal turns is paramount. The Chinese aircraft trades some close quarters nimbleness for aerodynamic stability during high-speed, long-distance flights. In a direct dogfight, pilots of both jets have massive control authority at their disposal, but the F-35 maintains a definitive edge in sustained energy retention. Its compact airframe, can reposition for a missile lock far more rapidly than the larger, heavier Chinese interceptor when engaged in continuous defensive maneuvering, while the Chinese platforms relies on rapid strike line escapes. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown, and leave a like if this comparison has been useful so far. Also drop a comment on what we should cover next. Number 5. Combat Range and Endurance. The geographic realities of the Pacific Theater demand immense operational endurance from strike and defense platforms. The J-20 boasts a massive fuel capacity, providing an estimated unrefueled combat radius of roughly 2,000 kilometers and maximum ferry range approaching 5,500 kilometers with external tanks. This exceptional endurance allows it to project air denial far beyond the Chinese coastline, loitering over contested territories like the South China Sea without immediate tanker support. The F-35, constrained by its smaller dimension, deliver a standard internal fuel combat radius of approximately 1,240 kilometers, with a total maximum range near 2,800 kilometers. The American platforms is fundamentally rely on a vast network of aerial refueling tankers and forward deploy island bases to achieve the same geographic reach as its competitor. This difference dictates their operational deployment. The Chinese fighter can execute deep strike intercept mission independently, heavily complicating adversary approaches. Meanwhile, the American fighter must coordinate complex refueling logistics, meaning an adversary could potentially neutralize the F-35 threat simply by targeting its vulnerable tanker support aircraft operating well behind the primary engagement zone. The sheer magnitude of this range discrepancy forces fundamental difference in how base locations are selected and protected during prolonged Pacific deployments. Number 4. Offensive payload and weapons. Delivering lethal ordnance while maintaining a low radar cross-section requires carefully engineered internal weapon base. The J-20 features a highly voluminous internal bay capable of carrying a total payload of roughly 11,000 kg, allowing it to house massive long-range interceptor munitions like the PL-15 and PL-10 missiles. This capacity enables the aircraft to strike multiple high-value targets from extreme standoff distance without breaking stealth. The F-35 possesses a significant smaller internal payload limit of approximately 2,600 kilograms, primarily utilizing the M120 AMRAAM and the M9 Sidewinders for its primarily air-to-air engagements, while the total external capacity of the American platforms reaches 8,200 kilograms. Utilizing external hardpoints drastically increases its radar signature. The Chinese strategy prioritizes carrying heavy, long-reaching weapons internally to ensure lethality against distant targets during extended patrols. The American strategy accepts a lower internal munition count, relying instead on the extreme precision and advanced seeker heads of its missiles. Consequently, the J-20 can afford to launch multiple heavy effectors in a single volley, whereas the F-35 must execute its engagement with high tactical efficiency. This payload imbalance dictates whether a fighter operates as an overwhelming volley fire platform or a surgical precision instrument. Number 3. Advanced Sensor Suites. The core advantage of 5th generation technology lies in ability to detect and categorize threats long before entering visual range. The F-35 is equipped with the sophisticated AN/APG-81 AESA radar, backed by an electro-optical distributed aperture system that provides the pilot with spherical 360-degree situational awareness. Crucially, it utilizes secure, high-bandwidth data link with MADL to instantly fuse and share this telemetry across the entire coalition fleet. The G20 operates with a powerful domestic AESA system, reportedly the Type 1475 radar, alongside its own passive targeting system such as the EOTS-86. However, detailed specifications regarding the processing bandwidth of its electronic warfare networks remain classified, and exact networking data is not publicly available. The operational impact of sensor fusion cannot be overstated in modern combat. The American platforms act as a decentralized command node, allowing multiple friendly aircraft to coordinate strikes silently based on a single jet sensor data. While the Chinese platform certainly possess long-range detection capabilities, its ability to seamlessly integrate targeting data with other fleet assets likely remains less mature than the proven American architecture. Sensor superiority ultimately determines which platform can dictate new battlefield geometry before the opposing forces even realize they have been detected by hostile targeting arrays. Number 2. Stealth and signature management. The defining characteristic of a modern premier fighter is its ability to operate within highly defended airspace without triggering early warning radars. The F-35 features an uncompromising stealth design, utilizing advanced radar-absorbent materials and meticulous external shaping to achieve an incredibly minimal radar cross-section. Every surface, panel, and internal weapon bay was engineered specifically to evade modern high-frequency air defense networks, allowing it to penetrate deep into hostile territory undetected. The G20 also integrated substantial low observable characteristics including a shaped A-frame and serrated engine nozzles. However, its overall signature is inherently larger due to its sheer physical size and the inclusion of forward gunner foreplanes, which inevitably create multiple radar reflection points from certain angles. The American platforms provides a distinct tactical advantage in offensive penetration operations, giving pilots the ability to approach sophisticated surface-to-air missile batteries from highly concealed positions. The Chinese platforms sacrifices absolute low observability for aerodynamic utility, ensuring it is stealthy enough to evade long-range detection while defending regional airspace, but potentially leaving it vulnerable to advanced integrated air defense systems at closer operational ranges. Maintaining stealth from all radar bands is the ultimate defining variable for survivability in heavily defended modern conflict zones. Number 1. Operational Design Philosophy. At most decisive factor distinguishes these two advanced airframes is the foundational strategic doctrine that governed their creation. The F-35 was designed from inception to operate as the networked, multi-role backbone of global coalition forces capable of executing simultaneously ground strike, intelligence, and electronic warfare missions. It prioritized system integration, data sharing, and sheer production volume to ensure interoperability across NATO and allied theaters. In direct contrast, the G20 was exclusively engineered as a specially set air superiority interceptor focused on homeland defense and regional air denial over the Western Pacific. Its massive size, long range, and heavy internal payload are specifically tailored to break adversary kill chains by destroying critical support assets like tankers and early warning aircraft. In a large-scale conflict, the American design allows commanders to flexibly deploy thousands of interconnected stealth fighters across multiple diverse mission profiles. The Chinese design forcefully denies access to its localized airspace, leveraging long-range kinetics to push enemy forces backward. Ultimately, their respective dominance is heavily dictated by whether the engagement demands global multi-role penetration or localized long-distance interception. These divergent design philosophies confirm that the outcome depends on the overarching strategic objective of the specific theaters. Ultimately, determining air dominance in 2026 relies entirely on the specific operational theater and mission parameters. The F-35 Lightning II maintains the definitive advantage in sensor fusion, stealth penetration, and multi-domain networking, making it the premier platform for coordinated, large-scale coalition offensive. Its global logistic chains and proven combat history ensure a highly reliable combat readiness. Conversely, the G-20 Mighty Dragons holds a distinct superiority in absolute range, kinematic speed, and internal payload capacity. It's designed perfectly aligned with China's regional air denial strategy, threatening distant targets with massive ordnance without requiring external refueling. In a realistic combat scenario over the Pacific, the outcome will depend heavily on logistical support. If the American platform can successfully protect its vulnerable aerial tankers and leverage its superior stealth to coordinate first look, first-kill missile volleys, it will dominate the battle space. However, if the Chinese platform utilizes its immense range and heavy munitions to systematically eliminate those exact support assets, it will effectively neutralize the adversary's capability to operate in the region. The engagement question: do you think the superior sensor fusion of the F-35 can effectively counter the extreme operational range and heavy payload of the G-20 in a prolonged Pacific conflict? If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to subscribe and leave a like to support the channel. We have more in-depth comparisons like this. Watch the next video that appears on your screen right now.